Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. All right, folks, tomorrow in Washington, D.C. is National Cannabis Festival. And, of course, it deals with this whole issue that we're seeing exploding across the country, this multi-billion-dollar industry where cannabis has been made legal in a variety of states. Now, the legal production and sale of cannabis is fertile ground for entrepreneurs, but the key is getting in the door. Now, there's now Malik, of course, he is the founder of the National Cannabis Festival and Policy Summit. Carolyn Phillips joins us right now. And so Malik is actually, get that straight. Sorry, Carolyn Phillips is the founder of the National Cannabis Festival and Policy Summit. Malik actually has his own business as an entrepreneur. So, Carolyn, welcome to the show. Caroline.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, I can barely hear Caroline.
Thank you so much for having
me. Okay, I can still barely hear her. So I'm going to throw the first question out. Hopefully I can hear you better. So, Caroline, why did you want to start this? Was it because not enough African Americans were involved in this space? Why'd you want to do this?
Well, it's definitely because of that and then more. I grew up in Washington, D.C., where the war on drugs really hit our lower income communities very hard. When I saw legalization come to D.C., I saw a lot of extremely expensive events come to our city, and I did not see any brown or black faces in those audiences. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to create an event that was accessible and affordable and could give people access to information and education to arm them to be part of this industry.
So tomorrow is the festival. So what is the festival? What is happening there? What's happening at the Policy Summit?
So the Policy Summit was today at the museum. It was a free event that was open to the public. It was really a convening of unlikely allies. We had people from both sides of the aisle talking about progress on cannabis legalization and social justice issues. Tomorrow is National Cannabis Festival. It's the 4th annual festival. We, of course, have a concert. It's headlined by Ludacris, Action Bronson, Biz Markie, and DC's Backyard Band. And then we have a lot more than that. We have 4 education pavilions where people can really learn about hemp and CBD. They can learn about business, they can learn about wellness, they can learn about policy and topics impacting cannabis culture all over the world. We also have an exhibitor village where people can see a lot of the businesses that are really innovating as far as products and what they're offering consumers in the cannabis space. But most importantly to me is our Veterans Pavilion and our Advocacy Village. In our Veterans Pavilion, members of the armed services, veterans, reservists will be able to gather and talk about how they use cannabis for wellness, possibly as an alternate to harmful opioids. And in our Advocacy Village, we'll have 32 of the nonprofit groups that have been leading the charge on cannabis legalization, exhibiting, talking to folks, educating them, and hopefully arming them to return to their communities and keep the fight alive.
So, Malik, so many African Americans obviously have been impacted by the nation's drug wars, but when you look at the folks who are profiting right now, they don't look like us. You started your particular business. Is that what the genesis of it was? That, like, look, if we were hurt by it before, we should be benefiting by it now?
Partly that, and the fact that 2 years ago, our office was ground zero for quite a few dispensary conversations in Pennsylvania. And I got a chance to see the numbers firsthand, and also where the slices were being given to and sent to. And so, look, at Deshuri, we were intentional. We said that we wanted our executives to be minority. We wanted our investment group and the investors that we took on to be minority. We wanted our employees to be minority. And all of those things have come to pass. It's not a Band-Aid to fix the gunshot wound that exists in this equity conversation, but rather to show that there is excellence in minority operations. We have 60,000 members of the Black farmers or the farmers group in cannabis, and Black farmers have been largely cut out of it. You're talking about 4.2%. in minority participation when we talk about levels of ownership and executive actions inside of cannabis companies. And then we watch the banking bill, quite frankly, and we're hoping that we're able to move that forward along with state standards in PA and Maryland and Georgia. But making sure that African Americans and minority businesses do not get banged at the level of transaction as it relates to our businesses. If we're not able to bank, we're not able to really sustain ourselves, because most of these investment groups have enough in the tank to wait this thing out. Most minority groups are still waiting for the opportunity to hang in there. And so I'm excited about what's happening in DC for 420. And I think around the country, minority groups are coming together to support efforts like that in legislation.
Davon, there's been a lot of criticism there in your state of Maryland, the lack of African Americans with dispensaries. They felt that there should have been more protection by the state legislature, by the Black Caucus when those bills were passed. We're seeing this in other states as well. And so I think, look, at the end of the day, this is an opportunity. And I've had conversations with other individuals, Montel Williams, of course, one of our partners on the show. They had a whole crowdsourced funding deal to buy farms. This is an issue that, for African Americans, is an economic opportunity. And we should be having the conversation and be in the conversation and not be left behind when this thing is, I won't say it's right now, it's, for lack of a better phrase, fertile ground. But at the end of the day, this is not truly an industry that is already at capacity. We have an opportunity to actually be a part of this. Now we got to be engaged, Davon.
Absolutely. And you're right, about the state of Maryland, where, you had a lot of, white money really has driven the nature of licensing here in Maryland. White money in its relationship, to the presiding officers and the Democratic Party leadership. And so, that's one of the things that's going to be a struggle if we're looking at getting more Black folks access to those opportunities, is that, they're competing against folks that just have more resources at their disposal. Now, one of the things that we're actually looking at here in the state of Maryland, my organization, Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, and our director of research, Lawrence Grand Prix, has been thinking about the idea of, so there's one conversation to be had about business opportunities. And those business opportunities can include, growing, but it can also include other auxiliary industries, the paraphernalia and whatnot. But what we're looking at is, how do we take the enormous tax revenues that are going to be generated, and how do we make sure that those are actually directed to the communities most directly impacted by the war on drugs? Because even though, it's important to look at ways to make sure that we're included on the business side, what we know is that there will be tax revenues to be generated. And in other states around the country, it was range between 50 million to 200 million, depending on the state, depending on the tax structure. And so one of the things we're looking at is, how do we make sure that those resources don't just go to the general fund, but how do we make sure those resources are targeted at community opportunities, opportunities for the community to be empowered, whether it's through community development opportunities, whether it's through investing in, programs that can uplift people that are in those communities that were ravaged by the war on drugs. So I think that's also the other angle of this that's important to talk about, is how do we make sure those tax revenues are directed in a way where our community can be repaired from the harm that's been done.
Teresa, I want to get your thoughts, and I'm going to finish up with Caroline. Teresa, go ahead.
I think it's a great opportunity for economic development for African Americans. I think it's fine time that we have not only licenses, but the opportunity to be a part of a growing industry. So I applaud those efforts. I applaud the festival. I believe this is their second annual, but also the African American woman with the vision to do this, to know that it's more about networking and selling, but it's also about the policy that we can impact and change lives and communities every single day.
Caroline, we know that the reason this is being held up in New York State is because the Black Caucus is also demanding what is going to be the impact for African Americans. This is where Black state legislators across the country can use their power to ensure African Americans are not left out of this process. Again, we were hurt greatly as a result of these drug policies, and then we should not be left out of the opportunity to participate on the business side of the growing cannabis industry. Caroline, your final comment, your thoughts on that question?
Absolutely. We have states that are now using tax money from cannabis to pay bills, but we have people sitting in jail for paying their bills with money from cannabis. So that needs to be evened out. And I think before we rush for full federal legalization, we need to make sure there's a good foundation for equity. Because if you look at the .com boom and the whole Silicon Valley, you don't see people of color and you don't see women. And that's because we weren't at the table when those decisions were being made.
All right, where can people go to get more information on the National Cannabis Festival?
You can visit nationalcannabisfestival.com. Tickets are still on sale, and we'll be setting open the gates at high noon tomorrow.
All right then, Caroline Phillips, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Fort
you.
Roland Martin Unfiltered. Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.